Okay. So I. So we're back.
We just went to see Thor Ragnarok.
We haven't started. If I finished the introduction.
Oh, I'm
Hold
sorry.
on a second.
Okay.
Well, okay, maybe I have finished it, but who cares? But anyway, yeah, we're back, but we're in mono now, which is not ideal, but who cares?
It'll do.
So we just came back from seeing Thor, right?
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok.
I can't do it this way. It just has to be a normal conversation, right?
It is a normal conversation. It's fine.
But okay.
But we also should say what we're about to talk about.
True. So I mean, we'll start with just talking about it as non-spoilery as possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, what constitutes a spoiler, up to you. But then we will definitely,
We'll let you know when we're going to talk about things like endings and cameos and things like that.
there are cameos. Spoiler.
It's a Marvel film, of course there's cameos.
Okay.
Easter eggs everywhere.
And the background noise you hear is Dafer Youssef. So, cool.
Cool.
So you start.
Okay. Well, I really enjoyed it. For a start, it was bright, colourful. Sort of took sort of a leaf out of the book of Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of, the space universe in Marvel is so bright and colourful. It's not like this dark void, which I always think is really interesting. It's full of nebulas and planets and stars, which is great. Like, I thought it was, visually, it was actually really interesting, the film.
Yeah, I mean, it did look nice at points. Sometimes, it made me think of, well, I imagine it to be Blockbuster, the movie, which is, to explain what I mean, just after we went out, I saw on big screen as a trailer for the new Jumanji movie.
There's a new Jumanji movie?
Called Welcome to the Jungle, with, you all guess which song is used, and it's with The Rock and Jack Black. And they're all in a jungle, but it seems like they're all children, but they are stuck in the bodies of adults, and it looks really bad. But it looks like exactly how you imagine a blockbuster to look like.
And you'd say the same thing about Thor?
At times, but then it's stunning. There's so much CG. It looks beautiful, but it's not like it's not the aesthetic that I normally like when I see a film.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know the aesthetic you like to see, because we only watched Match Point a couple of nights ago, and that was interesting film in terms of the way it...
Okay, we'll get to Match Point.
No, but isn't that the whole point?
Yeah. What? To just keep...
Well, I was gonna bring it.
Sprawl?
I was gonna bring it back.
If you want to, yeah. But I was just thinking we can talk about Match Point a bit later, because Match Point is brilliant for whoever hasn't seen it. But we're talking about Thor now, and as far as I remember,
well, you couldn't get two films that are more separate,
right? But you were really excited when you got out, like really excited.
No, I was, and the thing is that one of the things the Marvel movies always do is create a sort of excitement in me, because they have done such a good job of setting up this universe. And how many hours of film are there now dedicated to these people, including the TV shows? It's crazy, and they've done such a good job. And I was actually thinking during the film whether the DC universe has earned their right to an Avengers style movie in the form of Justice League. Before the Avengers, we had Iron Man, Hulk, we had Thor, we had Captain America. These characters have been set up so much now that everything makes sense. So you go into these films knowing what's happening. I mean, even for you, who hasn't necessarily seen all of them,
No, I have not.
but you didn't lose track of the story that was being told in this particular film, did you?
No, but there were moments when I was like, "Who is that? What is that?" Because you can tell by the filmmaking language that it's like, "Hey, this is an important person that you know," and also you can hear the reaction of people in the cinema going like, "Ah," and like "tak" and whatever. But but no, the main story is pretty simple, but also that's I think one of the things I did. Like one of the things I didn't like about it. But so, okay, can you explain to whoever doesn't know what it is, like what the synopsis plus the plot?
Okay, so
I'll be right back.
at the end of the last Avengers film, Age of Ultron, Thor had visions of the end of Asgardian society. So the last time we saw him, because he hasn't been present in any other Marvel film since that I can remember, is he went off to discover what the problem was, and so this film starts with him reaching a point.
That's okay, Duffer. You can quiet down a bit now.
Reaching a point. So it sort of starts at the end in Thor's head anyway, and moving on from that, his sister Hela, the goddess of death, because as we know, Thor is based in the Norse mythology.
Yeah.
The Marvel universe actually takes a lot out of Norse mythology, but the comic books about Thor really do, make him this old-fashioned, otherworldly being. Thor has grown as a character so much that in this film we see a different side of him. He's funny, and he's got, he's.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say he's got some sass now.
But we were at Hela, right?
Yeah. So. But that's the thing. Like Hela, the goddess of death, she returns. Loki is also in the film, but I won't. He's a main part of it, but I won't ruin how he becomes the main part of it. But the last time we saw Loki, it was Thor: The Dark World, and he was taking on the form of Odin, who was the main guy, the king of Asgard. And Odin was banished. So that's where the film begins. It begins with Hela being released and Loki and Thor coming back together. So it's great. It's actually really good to see Tom Hiddleston again. I really like Loki. He's a great villain because he sort of encapsulates that what is in his nature plus what is in his nurture, and there is a sort of heroic edge to Loki even when he's at his most villainous. We like him, so yeah, I mean, coming into it fresh,
Yeah.
how did you feel? Like, did you feel like everything happened organically?
Yeah, mostly. So as you probably can see from the trailer already, whatever, this is gonna be a gladiator moment. And watching it, I was just thinking that like Spartacus was better. Like what? Like it just feels like I guess it's based on a story in one of the comic books, but it just feels like we've been here before. We can tell the story in a different way.
Well, I think they've taken pages out of. I don't know if it's the Hulk versus Marvel Universe or whether it's this other thing, and I can't remember the name of it to save my life. But there was a comic where Thor is, basically a gladiator. He's been kidnapped, I think, by Thanos or someone, but he is fighting in an arena, and it really felt like that's what they were taking from as their source material, because the Marvel universe, the cinematic Marvel universe at least, has to write its own pages in its own history, you know. So I always look at the Marvel universe like an alternate universe to the comic book universe, because, you know, learn something interesting.
Yeah.
Disney is in talks with Fox to buy out their, so it's possible that the X-Men and Fantastic Four could be heading over to the Marvel universe, but I'm holding out hope, but I don't know.
Yeah, but at this point, do you think that if they brought the X-Men back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, do you think it's worth retconning the fact that they call them mutants?
Well, they can't call them mutants.
What
They
do
call
they call
them.
them?
I think they call them either the Gifted or
Right.
I'm not sure what they call them. But yeah, I think they're not allowed to use the term mutant in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. they call them something else, but I can't remember. I think it's the Gifted or something similar to that.
So I think instead of just suddenly calling everyone like mutants, it makes more sense to just bring in the X-Men and just keep calling whatever.
Sure, but I mean the
them before.
X-Men would refer to themselves as mutants, and that would be fine. But in the universe that's been set up, I don't know how they would all fit in. So I don't know if they would just keep them separate. To be honest.
Yeah, but also I think saying something like the Gifted isn't exactly what like they're about, because they're evolutionary further than us humans. That's why mutants make sense. It's not like they don't have magic powers just because.
Well, that's just
magic.
it. But the term mutant was in the X-Men universe is coined by Charles Xavier. So you know, if we haven't met Charles Xavier yet, we have no reason for them to be called mutants. Yeah.
Right. So to go back to Thor, and what I did like about it, and really liked it, was the more comic book moments, and especially, I mean, Kate Blanchett.
Oh my god, incredible villainess, like brilliant and so compelling. Like whenever she's on screen, she's still got that.
She's such a bitch, though.
No,
I love that about
but
her.
it was, you know, that's one thing that the Marvel Universe really does have. It has these characters which are well-rounded. They're funny. They're not just, doomed to the universe and let's screw it up. No, they have sass, and they speak as we speak. Or they speak as we wish we could speak, I think sometimes. You know, they're these almighty beings. And so confidence and cockiness has to come with that, I think. And they do such a good job of writing those things into every character, no matter where they're from or what they do. You know, you really believe these guys have faith in their own abilities.
Yeah, true. But what I like about her is that, I mean, she doesn't have that much screen time, in the sense of, well, we don't really know that much about her. We get a little bit of backstory, but we don't really like normally, you know, we get some backstory for the villain to make them seem more human, for it to be morally more ambiguous and more complex, I guess. But
I mean, I don't think you need.
do that.
I don't think you need much more backstory than she's the goddess of death, and she, you know, was part of Asgardian history for a long time until something happened that meant she wasn't anymore. You know, Thor and Loki have no idea she exists before it's revealed. So yeah. But Kate Blanchett did a fantastic job. I don't really remember Thor: The Dark World that much, but I do remember it being quite a dour film. Like, it was quite downbeat and serious, and you know, it had its Marvel moments, obviously, with the humor. But this film felt much more of a comedy.
Oh my god! Yeah, totally. From the very first shot, immediately it jumps into like, oh, okay, let's be funny and goofy, and it made me think the way it opens up with that this wide profile shot. it reminded me of the opening of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and I feel like there's a lot of cues taken from that.
But it certainly was more comic booky, though. You know, that shot at the beginning where he's in a cage.
It's very, yeah.
But you know, and he's talking to himself, but he's explaining how he got in the cage. But it felt like a panel. You know, in a comic book that would have just been a panel of him thinking to himself. In this case, he's speaking to a skeleton, but. It doesn't feel like exposition for exposition's sake. It's like he's basically explaining, and I don't think this is a spoiler because it happens right at the beginning of the film, that he got caught on purpose, and you know, so it makes a difference to the scene following on. He constantly seems very confident and like he's not so bothered by being captured. So yeah, I like that about it. I didn't need to know how Thor got in that cage. He just was, you know, because he meant to be.
Yeah.
Just going back to your point about the goofiness, I think the reason Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok have to be a little bit more goofy is because there's a hell of a lot of ridiculous stuff going on. You know, suspension of disbelief has to go into overdrive because it's, you know, it's set in space and there are all these aliens. And what I love is that the aliens are aliens, you know, they're not just humanoid creatures. A lot of them are quite literally alien. And it's great. So yeah, I think the reason that they have to be goofy specifically, and I think Infinity War will also have those points.
Oof, gorgeous.
They will have more goofy elements, but I also think setting up this universe as a universe instead of just you know, it's based on Earth is great, and I'm so glad that Earth wasn't really used all that much in this film, because now I really feel like the other characters are part of that extended universe, you know, the outside, the more galactic form of the universe. So I'm excited to see
Infinity
moving
Wars.
forward. I mean, you've got, I think Black Panther is the next one due to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely going to be set on Earth, but it's also going to be setting up this, you know, this kingdom that Black Panther rules, and which has been, you know, hinted at, and he has his purpose now because I think his name's T'Challa.
Yeah.
He's you know, now the king of, I can't remember the name of the place. It's you know, but it was a big part, and it's where adamantium comes from in the comics, and I'm pretty sure in actually this universe, but I don't know if they can use adamantium in the Marvel universe. So they've called it something else. It's what Captain America's shield is made out of.
Oh, right. It's coming back to
It's
me,
something anium.
maybe.
It's something anium, but I can't.
Something anium.
Yeah. There's a great part in this film actually. What I loved as well is they didn't shy away from like some
unobtainium.
so it's not unobtainium, no. But in this film there are a lot of things which I feel would be like universal translator making sense of something ridiculous. So they're is it ruining the joke? I don't know. There's something they call the devil's anus, and it's...
At this point, let's just go for... I think it's fair to just go for spoiler warning and then just
Sure,
jump
because,
in the
yeah,
deep
there's...
end.
I mean, if, you know...
Because I also want to talk about who, to me, is more... Well, much more central character than I expected them to be.
Go on.
Well, okay, so spoiler, boop, 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 sirens and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinking silence, so I was thinking back to Simpsons, the silent alarm activated.
So go on, you were saying?
The Hulk.
Yeah.
Hulk.
Yeah, but we also haven't seen Bruce Banner for
A while.
2 years. It's actually said in the film, 2 years. You know, we saw him at the end of Age of Ultron.
Where he just
and
like said like, okay, I'm getting.
he
PTSD.
well he yeah
Yeah.
he sort of had this moment with Black Widow, and you know, he disappears and she's left forlorn, and that also plays a little part in him returning, because when we see the Hulk, he is fully Hulk. He isn't in any way Bruce Banner. He's fully the Hulk. So something happened to him while he was flying away, and he gets lost in this sort of place outside of reality. It's like its own little world, where all the lost things go, and the Hulk has ended up there and ends up becoming a gladiator, and apparently has been doing it for at least 2 years. But time moves differently in this place as well, so it might have been much longer for Bruce. Who knows? Or maybe a lot shorter.
Yeah, well, if you think about, so I mean, it seems how long was Thor in this place? 2 weeks.
Yeah, he wasn't there very long.
Yeah, but he was there for 2 weeks, and he was only there for one fight, right? So maybe the gladiator thing is happening like on a bi-weekly schedule, and then if you look at the amount of like trophies that Hulk is wearing on his necklace, you can probably like do the math.
I feel like they had that Hulk, because they haven't given him his own movie, and that's because Hulk movies as a whole don't generally amount to much. And the reason being because Hulk is this creature that is one emotion, you know, he's rage. And the real struggle in those films is trying to match Bruce Banner as a human being, and then Bruce Banner as the Hulk. And what the other films have done, the Avengers, you know, I mean, if we're not including the first Marvel movie, Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, which is the Hulk, Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner anyway, has been set up as this incredibly complex character, but he needs the other characters to make him interesting. If you can't just have Bruce Banner on his own, because he's just a two-sided coin. Rage, person trying to fight against the rage. This Bruce Banner, because he's had enough time to develop, has now become someone that we feel for, we sympathize, we feel much pathos for, because he has grown to be able to control through a long time to be a real human.
Yeah.
Even when he's the Hulk.
So now I switched the music to Tim Hecker, and oh, beautiful. It sort of sounds like a vacuum cleaner. But you know, I love the sounds of vacuum cleaner, so it's perfect. Works out all right. So there's who plays the third main character?
The Valkyrie.
Yeah.
I think her name's Tessa something.
Okay, there's moments with Tessa that I liked, because she seemed to have more, you know, a bit more depth in her.
I think her name's actually like Scrapper234. I'm not sure we learn her name. But her name didn't matter. We know the Asgardian universe has, as in Norse mythology, the Valkyries, which are this like elite group of female warriors who guide. I think in Norse mythology they guide warriors to Valhalla to wait for Ragnarok to take place. And we learn quite late on actually that this Valkyrie, who has ended up in this lost place, was a part of a much larger army who were killed by Hela. So, yeah. So she's a big part of the film. I wasn't sure, actually, because she always seemed so composed, but she was also a heavy drinker, so I never really understood whether she couldn't be affected by the alcohol because she was Asgardian or whatever. But her character didn't really have an arc so much as she was just there to, you know, stop being a scrapper and become a Valkyrie again. That was her journey.
Yeah. And what a journey. I'm sure it was epic, but we didn't see much of it.
Well, no, that's just it. Like, we sort of know that she was part of this big defeat and then had been in this lost place for a long time. Jeff Goldblum, by the way, is this person called the Grand Master, and he's really funny, and I really enjoyed his performance.
I did not.
You didn't?
No. So I guess you can start with saying why you like it.
No, I've talked enough. You go in first.
It was just Jeff Goldblum being himself. Like, pretty
But
much.
don't all actors end up doing that eventually? Like, they reach a certain age? Like,
Yeah,
can you say
fine.
Anthony Hopkins Odin was Anthony Hopkins?
No, well, I didn't realize that was Anthony Hopkins until the credits, so no. But my problem with Jeff Goldblum in this character is that this character, I feel, shouldn't be acted so down to earth.
I didn't really see him as down to earth. Isn't that strange? Like, I saw him as this guy who was, again, the Marvel Cinematic Universe confidence, but he knew who he was. He didn't really need to put in any effort. He has his second in command who's really funny, and really funny because she's so dry. But Goldblum's character was a foil. He wasn't the main villain, and I didn't really see him as a villain during anyway. I just saw him as this guy who was in command of this place.
Well, I don't know, this might sound like a really stupid comparison, but just in my head I made a connection between his performance in this character, Jeff Goldblum, to what's his name, the Mad Hatter, Johnny Depp,
yeah.
but without the crazy.
Yeah, like he was kind of, yeah, he was dressed ridiculously, and I had a feeling like he could have been a bit more flamboyant with it, to be honest. It seemed like he was dressed to be flamboyant.
Yeah.
And he was sort of, I see what you mean. His performance was probably far less exuberant than it could have been if someone else had been playing it. But I also didn't mind it. Like I said, I liked his performance. I thought there was so much ridiculousness going on anyway that having someone who should be ridiculous not being as ridiculous as you would expect was actually not a bad choice.
Right. So, earlier on in the film, we meet Doctor Strange again.
Yeah.
And moment.
I was just going to say, and I just want to preface it, we find out that he is, well, since the end of Doctor Strange, like, he became one and is now the guardian of Earth, in terms of strange things that are coming and going through the dimensions, mystical or otherwise. Which
cool, that helps build the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't think they added much to the film. It basically did a gag which the famous old comedian whose silent films, whose
Charlie
name
Chaplin?
is, no, the other one, Buster Keaton. It reminds me of the entire sequence reminds me of something Buster Keaton did much better, like in the silent era.
Explain.
Well, there's this film. I forget the name of it, but he works his playing a character works as a projectionist, and he falls asleep, and then suddenly wakes up on the screen in the film. But whenever the film cuts to a different scene, his position, or he just remained normal. So the gag was that he was just walking, do actions, but then he keeps cutting between different situations, and he has to keep reacting to it. But it's done so well, like you can't, like it feels like he's really separate from the films.
Okay, and how does this connect to Ragnarok?
Because Doctor Strange keeps teleporting us around over and over again.
Oh yeah,
and Thor keeps being messed around in it, and it's like funny, I guess, but it's.
Well, I see. I don't
moment, but it's not a laughing moment. At the
end of Doctor Strange post-credit scene, there are 2 post-credit scenes, by the way. It is the first one's definitely worth waiting for. The second one is a bit like they have been recently, where it's sort of like you waited around, so here you go, have a thing. But, if you really need to pee, sit and watch the first one, don't watch the second one. But if you don't, then do sit and wait, because it's a funny little, here you go. It sort of feels like a passing gift, like you've watched the film, you sat through the credits, so here you go. And I think that's fine.
Yeah. So it's we sort of said that we're gonna do this shorter, but now it's been half an hour of recording. So I think we should wrap it up. But just to connect it back quickly to Match Point, this film is nothing like Match Point. And I would say that if you were to compare them, Match Point is better.
Well, I would argue the other way, but Match Point is for another occasion. Thank you very much for listening this far, and
see you next time.
See you next time
on the Sprawl.
Sprawl.
Ew, let's never do that again.
Please.